Hey everybody, Gisele Grenier here from artplace.ca. So today's video is going to be a very simple video. I'm basically creating this video for someone special who basically has told me that she likes creating ATCs because she's super busy. She wants to get into some abstract art because it is easier and faster to do, and she doesn't have to focus so much on composition technique, making something look realistic. So I thought I would do this video for her, and I'll wait for her to jump up in the chat and say, hey, that's for me. Right? So the other thing I'm doing with this is that although the video is showing you how to create, basically like abstract for beginners type of thing, it's going to be done in a way that you can actually gift this up to somebody. So you can give it as a gift. The focus for today's lesson is going to be texture. I was inspired by a piece of corrugated cardboard. This is plastic and coroplast, and it was attached to the box with the TV that Joe just bought. It was attached to the back of the box. Not sure why. So that's what inspired me, this little piece of plastic. And on the table, I cut up part of the box, and it's a double-sided corrugated cardboard. You don't have to buy this stuff. You can just look around the house and you can find cardboard like this. I'm amazed that we're going to the big box art store and that they're selling this stuff. So just look around the house. So I'm going to be working, so you can work with something like this, but I have a piece to save time already prepared to show if you don't have corrugated cardboard. Cardboard packaging. Now, although this is a little bit flimsier than this nice strong cardboard, if you're using just like packaging cardboard, make your pieces smaller so there's not a lot of warp. The other thing that you can do, super simple, you can still create your art, and when you do get some corrugated cardboard, just glue it to the back or frame it. So it's not like you can't do it. And I'm going to also prep the back just to show you. So I'm going to be using the Decor Media line. So we're going to start off with gesso, the white gesso, to prep the cardboard. And I've also got some white modeling paste. And for the paints, got raw umber, phthalo green blue, quinacridone burnt orange, quinacridone magenta, metallic gold, and transparent yellow iron oxide. If you're using the traditions, you can use permanent alizarin crimson, and if you have viridian, you can use that. Some type of green that leans towards blue, and you want a red that leans toward. We're going to be making chromatic black, so use your favorite method for chromatic black. Just don't use black out of the tube because it's so flat. So use your favorite way of making black. And then what I'm also going to do with the metallic and transparent yellow iron oxide, I have a video coming up for that as well. Going to be adding some texture with modeling paste. Then we're going to use something as simple as gauze, sheer material, or an onion bag to add for the texture. This project is so simple, and you know what? Kids can do it too. But for me, I'm going to be using the gauze. You don't need any super duper brushes. I'm just going to be using my trusty number 8 Bristle Bright to gesso this. Then we're going to paint the gauze because of the drying time, and then we'll paint the cardboard. So you just want to apply a layer. On unprimed cardboard, paint will just suck right into it. With the gesso, applying it straight on. This is the gesso straight out of the container. It's not the thickened gesso or the thin gesso that I usually make up. I like this kind of rough texture here, but you do want to make sure that you cover everything. And then, so if you're using just cardboard disc, make sure you work both sides and choose the side that has the most interest. And I'm going to probably use this one. That's too smooth. I'm going to put that aside to dry. Now we're going to stain this. And you can use a media misters for this. That you can use that, of course. I want to do a little bit of, not so much color mixing. I want to change the finish of the gauze. So this is just regular gauze from a first aid kit. So ideally what I want to do is I want to have it about two times longer than the actual piece I'm working on, because that way I can manipulate it and just trim it if necessary. So I'm going to take some transparent yellow iron oxide, and before I even, you want to make sure there's no white in this whatsoever. So I'm going to work on the palette. So transparent yellow iron oxide. And I'm going to take a little bit of the metallic gold, roughly about half of whatever you put out for the transparent yellow iron oxide. So now we have to thin this down. If we don't thin it down, putting that on the it's just going to get stiff and very sticky, and it's not going to spread out because I want it to be very translucent. And if I was, there we go, my Mr. Bottle. And I'm just going to mist this first. I don't want it sopping wet. Don't want it sopping wet, but I do want it damp. And then now we'll, so you want to just make that, you see I'm just kind of making lines because I want some parts to be matte and some parts to be shiny. So you end up with this really interesting piece of gauze that's colored. Once you put this on a paper towel, you can use a heat gun to dry it. All right, so I'm going to get a paper towel. I ended up getting paint on myself anyways. Go. So this will also, if any excess paint will just get sucked right into the paper towel as well. Basic little composition here. When the acrylics dry, it'll make it a little bit stiffer, not so stiff as if when you used the regular paints. So this is all dry, and now what I want to do is I want to paint this with a chromatic black, which is black made with color. And if I was using Traditions, I would use permanent alizarin crimson, and then I would mix up a Viridian because I don't have Viridian in that brand. So with going to the DecoArt Media Fluid acrylics, there isn't an alizarin crimson, but there is a Viridian. But I'm going to show you how to make Viridian. So basically with the alizarin crimson, you take quinacridone magenta, quinacridone burnt orange, you mix those together and you add in a little bit of phthalo green that's on the blue side. That'll neutralize it a bit. But because the quinacridone colors lean more towards the reddish blue and phthalo green also leans more towards the blue, you're going to have more intense colors. And by then when we introduce raw umber, that'll neutralize and add a little bit of opacity to it. You can, and Viridian, you can make it with phthalo green and raw umber. So just simply 4 colors. Just don't use black out of the 2 because it's so flat. And I'll just use a synthetic for this. So I'm just going to bring some colors in. And roughly equal parts of the quinacridone magenta and burnt orange, and then a speck of phthalo green. And then start looking at that. That actually looks pretty good. Now I'm going to bring in some raw umber. And when we're add a little bit more green to neutralize. So you're making the alizarin crimson first, then you're adding the Viridian hue into it to make it really dark. So the phthalo green works 2 ways. There we go. So look at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of slap this on, and I'm thinking too, I probably should have put some matte medium on here to extend the drying time. The studio lights, they're not too bad now. And now all these ideas coming up what I could do with this, but we're going to keep this one simple. I'll just do another video later on. And if I run out of paint, just make up a little bit more. Don't worry about mixing the exact same color. It doesn't matter. You just want something super dark. It also adds interest as well. And you have to work fast while the paint is wet. Edge is done. So now what I want to do is to take a paper towel, and I'm just around the top section, I'm just going to pad to get a few little pieces of the canvas showing. You can use rubbing alcohol splatter to get, some circles appearing. And I'm not going to worry about this because we're going to have the modeling paste on that. And then if you remove too much, you can just drag the brush on top just to get a little more paint on there and interest. So when you have something you like, I'll just show you this. So I like that. And then you can just dry this, and then we're ready to go on to the next step. So this has to be 100% dry before you put the modeling paste on. And so we just put the paint on. And whether you do this first, then do the gauze, which is just hanging now, it doesn't matter. There's a bit of drying time, but you can always work on something else. So if you're really, really busy, there is something that you can always be doing while things are drying. So typically this can be done in under a half an hour. The modeling paste will take the longest to dry, but the piece will be done. The piece will be done, then it just has to dry. And I would say, I would give it, depending on how thick you put it on, give it a couple days and it's ready to go. All right, so I'm going to dry this, clean this up, and I'm going to get out the modeling paste. So I'm just dry fitting this first, so I've got the whole piece. And I'm looking at something like this. I may just cut this off to make it look like it's coming down here, but we can, when we put the modeling paste on here, we can really work with some texture. So texture being the focus on this, we've got visual texture, so it looks like we've got some nice patterns going here. We've got some physical texture with the paint, and now we're adding even more texture with the collage. So I'm thinking about doing something like that, get some real good something happening here. On the black it looks really pretty, but we're gonna put some modeling paste on here. Now if you don't have modeling paste, you can use gesso. As long as it's the thick stuff, you can use gesso, and I have a blog post written on how to thicken up gesso, a really easy way of doing that. I'll try to remember to link it below. And so gesso, you can use sand paste, texture paste, anything thick. But if you're doing this as a gift for somebody, don't use the DIY stuff, because you don't know how that's going to work long term, and you don't want your gift kind of yellowing and falling apart. So I'm going to take my modeling paste, which is nice and thick. Just going to give it a bit of a stir. I'm going to start on this side. Well, actually, we'll go here. What I'm doing, I'm going to put some strokes up. So starting quite thickly on the bottom, and I'm just going to work it upwards like this. And it's going to be pretty opaque. It's going to be pretty opaque on the bottom. But you can choose how much you want to show. I don't want to have a whole bunch of lines. So this is where you just get to play, and that you don't have to have any special skills to do this. It's just more of having the patience just to hold the palette knife. If you don't have a palette knife, use a piece of cardboard. You don't have to have anything special. I'm finding that I'm hearing a lot of excuses from people. Oh, I don't have the right stuff. No, that's not always the case. I'm just removing some paint, and I like getting these texture pieces here. Forgot to bring out the clear modeling paste, because we have to glue it down here as well. So I'll have to get that. If you don't have clear modeling paste, use matte medium. Oh, maybe I should use matte medium. And you can put the paint medium on here. You can put directly on here. If you're not sure how you want to do this, you can let the modeling paste dry, then just use matte medium for the whole thing. And making sure that I don't move it around too much once it's on the modeling paste part, because that's white. And then I'm going to cut it once it's dry. So I'll just take the matte medium, go underneath. You don't have to have it everywhere. It's just to hold the piece, and that's going to dry transparent. putting the matte medium right on top of the modeling paste. Because this is so thin, the modeling paste is so thick, it's going to hold. Now, what you could have done if you didn't have modeling paste but you had matte medium, you can do this technique again just with the gesso. You can let it dry and then just put matte medium over the whole thing. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. There we go. That's it. It's finished. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this aside just the way it is, and this is kind of like the ugly stage. Once it dries, you're going to see the whole thing will be transformed into something else. So I'll see you in about a day. Well, it's been about a day and a half, and it's all dry now. And then I cut the pieces off on the side. Then I saw this piece, which looks like a horse. Doesn't that look like a horse? So I think what I'm going to do, oh, Mia's coming. And I think what I'm going to do is I might glue that on. I'm going to leave it for a little bit longer, then come back to it and take a look at it and see. But this turned out kind of interesting. Now, one thing I did notice, that even with how thick the cardboard was, it did warp quite a bit, and that's because of the modeling paste. And because the modeling paste is flexible, because it's made for art purposes, I can do this and it won't crack. So it'll be very easy for me to mount this onto to a board. So taking this piece, I can go right here. Now I wouldn't be able to recreate this exactly the way it is, but it gives me an idea now for a much larger piece that would be great for just putting up on a wall, home decor. And you can make this really long, tall, whatever. If I were to put this into my living room, I probably would make this more on the teal side, more on the blue side, like the actual color. Instead of the chromatic black leaning more towards red, I would make the chromatic black leaning towards blue. And the modeling paste, I might put it on a little bit thicker. And this, I probably would come back in and maybe put a little bit of hits here and there with some metallic paint. I'm not sure yet. I would have to take this downstairs and kind of put it on the wall and kind of look and see. So I hope this gave you some ideas of what you can do for your own abstract art, especially for beginners. It's a great thing to do. Very minimal supplies. If you don't have modeling paste, use gesso. If you don't have gauze like this, use paper towel, an old shirt, an old pillowcase, something like that. Just something that you can stain. And if you don't have like matte medium, just use a decoupage glue or even a school glue. Just keep in mind that when you veer away from art products, like products designed for art, you're taking a chance on the discoloration and the flexibility and stuff like that. So if you're making this for yourself, yeah, experiment. But if you're making this for a gift or to sell, make sure you use actual art products for that purpose. That way the results, long-term results, are going to be expected. And that's it. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you've ever created an abstract piece before. Have you ever created something abstract? What drove you to create it as an abstract piece? I'd love to hear from you. So please comment below and let me know your thoughts. All right, so I'm going to put this away. I'm probably going to glue this and set it aside, and I'm going to get ready for my next project. So until I see you then, stay inspired.